Afternoon. I am Mrs. Simi, and today's class is on adipose tissue metabolism. Now, synthesis of triglycerides. Actually, triglycerides, their synthesis are taking place in liver and adipose tissue. So, these are the main sites. Now, adipose tissue, it actually serves as storage of energy. That is, in the adipose tissue, we can store this triglycerides. And whereas regarding liver, the triglycerides, they are secreted as VLDL, and these triglycerides are transported in the VLDL to the peripheral tissues, and they are being utilized in these tissues. Now, if we see the triacylglycerol molecule, its structure, we know it is made up of glycerol molecule to which 3 fatty acids are being esterified at its first, second and third carbon. The R represents fatty acids. And synthesis of triacylglycerol can take place by esterification of fatty acyl CoA either by glycerol 3 phosphate or dihydroxyacetone phosphate. Now, glycerol part of the fat can be derived from the metabolism of glucose, and dihydroxyacetone phosphate, it is an intermediate derived from glycolysis. Okay. Now, glycerol 3 phosphate, for synthesizing triglyceride, we should have glycerol 3 phosphate. So, glycerol 3 phosphate can be obtained by phosphorylation of glycerol or by reduction of dihydroxyacetone phosphate. Now, an enzyme which is responsible for triacylglycerol synthesis is glycerol kinase, but this glycerol kinase is deficient in case of adipose tissue. So, in adipose tissue, the major source is dihydroxyacetone phosphate, whereas in liver, glycerol kinase is active. Now, triacylglycerol synthesis can also take place in the intestinal mucosal cells by 2-monoacylglycerol pathway. So here, this 2-monoacylglycerol, it is produced during the digestion of lipids as an end product, and this 2-monoacylglycerol, it is absorbed by the intestinal mucosal cells. There it is esterified with fatty acyl CoA and it forms triacylglycerol. Now, this, in case of fed state, esterification can occur at a rapid rate, and in the fasting state, the synthesis of triglycerides occur side by side only along with lipolysis due to high free fatty acid level. So, in fasting state, there is mainly lipolysis take place where free fatty acid is liberated. So, this free fatty acid can also again be utilized for synthesizing triglycerides in the fasting state. Now, this in the fasting state, glycerol phosphate, we need glycerol 3 phosphate for synthesizing triacylglycerol. So, in the fasting state, glycerol 3 phosphate is derived from dihydroxyacetone phosphate obtained through gluconeogenesis. So, whereas in the fed state, the glycerol 3 phosphate will be obtained from glycolysis through dihydroxyacetone phosphate. Now, the activity of the enzyme phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase in liver and adipose tissue, that is also enhanced in case of fasting. So, glycerol phosphate will be available to esterify and store the excess fatty acid which is mobilized. Now, we will see synthesis of triglycerides. So, This is using dihydroxyacetone phosphate. So here dihydroxyacetone phosphate is to that we are adding a fatty acyl CoA molecule, and it can be converted to acyl dihydroxyacetone phosphate. So this dihydroxyacetone phosphate from this mainly take place in adipose tissue because their glycerol kinase is deficient. So this mainly take place in adipose tissue. Now, acyl dihydroxyacetone phosphate is reduced to lysophosphatidic acid using NADPH plus H plus. And again to lysophosphatidic acid, we are adding an acyl transferase. We are adding a fatty acyl CoA in the presence of acyl transferase to produce phosphatidic acid. And from the phosphatidic acid, inorganic phosphate is released and it forms 1,2-diacyl glycerol. Now 1,2-diacyl glycerol, to that we are adding another fatty acyl CoA in the presence of acyl transferase to form triacyl glycerol. Now we will see synthesis of triacyl glycerol, that is using glycerol kinase. So glycerol kinase is active in liver, we know. So here glycerol is phosphorylated to glycerol 3 phosphate by glycerol kinase, and to glycerol 3 phosphate we are adding acyl CoA by in the presence of acyl transferase, and it is converted to 1-acyl glycerol 3 phosphate. Now to the second carbon we are adding another molecule of acyl CoA by the same enzyme to form 1,2-diacyl glycerol 3 phosphate, or it is also known as phosphatidic acid. Now from this we have to remove the phosphate at the third carbon. So it is by phosphohydrolase and it forms diacyl glycerol. Again to diacyl glycerol we are adding acyl CoA at the third carbon to produce triacyl glycerol. So this is how triglycerides are synthesized using glycerol kinase. Now metabolism of adipose tissue. So we know the adipose tissue serves as storage site for excess of calories taken in. But the triglycerides which are stored in the adipose tissue, they remain inert. I mean, they are not inert. So actually they undergo a daily turnover with new triacyl glycerol molecules being synthesized, and also some triacyl glycerol molecules will be broken down. So in the adipose tissue the triacyl glycerols are not only stored, but here in the adipose tissues some amount of triglycerides are being synthesized whereas some are being broken down. So here it is shown, we already saw the synthesis of triglycerides. Now the breakdown of triglycerides, this is brought about by an enzyme which is a hormone sensitive enzyme known as hormone sensitive lipase. So this enzyme will cleave will hydrolyze triacyl glycerol into to release 3 free fatty acids and glycerol molecule. Now, the lipase enzyme is activated by glucagon and catecholamines, that is epinephrine and norepinephrine, and also by growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, and melanocyte stimulating hormone, whereas insulin inhibits the lipase enzyme. Now, we will see the adipose tissue in well-fed condition. So what are the things happening in the well-fed condition in adipose tissue? So in well-fed condition, active lipogenesis take place in adipose tissue, and also the dietary triglycerides which are present in the intestine, they are being transported by chylomicron to the adipose tissue, and from the liver the endogenous triglycerides, that is which are synthesized in the liver. These triglycerides are transported by VLDL and they are taken up by the adipose tissue. So the adipose tissue uptakes the dietary triglycerides from intestine and the endogenous triglycerides from the liver, and these triacyl glycerols are stored in the adipose tissue. So these things are taking place in the well-fed condition. So that is how adipose tissue acts as a storage site for triacylglycerol molecule. Now the other things are the glucose and insulin levels. They are increased in under well-fed condition, and we know glucose transporter 4, which is present in adipose tissues, which helps in the uptake of glucose molecules. That is insulin dependent. And insulin, it activates the key glycolytic enzymes, hexokinase, phosphofructokinase, pyruvate kinase. Then it activates pyruvate dehydrogenase, then acetyl CoA carboxylase, then glycerol phosphate acyl transferase. So it activates all these enzymes. Now, the stimulant effect of insulin on the uptake of glucose by adipose tissue, then the stimulate effect on glycolysis, then utilization of glucose by HMP pathway, all these lead to lipogenesis. Then insulin, it inhibits the hormone sensitive lipase. So when insulin inhibits lipase, we know lipase converts triglycerides. Lipase cleaves triglycerides to free fatty acids and glycerol. So when insulin inhibits lipase, lipolysis will be decreased. Now adipose tissue in fasting condition. So in fasting condition, we know the hormones glucagon and epinephrine are released, and these hormones mobilize triacylglycerols from adipose tissue. So during fasting condition, there is high level of glucagon, epinephrine. Not only that, adrenocorticotropic hormone, glucocorticoids, thyroxine. So all these hormones will activate the hormone sensitive lipase, and whose function is to cleave triglycerides into free fatty acids and glycerol. Now these free fatty acids can be utilized as a fuel in the peripheral tissues. Okay, so in fasting condition we know there is non-availability of glucose. So triglycerides can serve as alternate source of energy in these peripheral tissues. So we will see how this hormone sensitive lipase is activated. Okay, now on under conditions of fasting, the hormones glucagon, noradrenaline, then adrenaline, then growth hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, TSH, thyroxine, all these hormones are released, and these hormones bind with a receptor present in the cell membrane on the adipocytes, and these receptors are G protein coupled receptors. So these hormones bind with the receptor and they activate an enzyme called adenyl cyclase, and this adenyl cyclase causes the conversion of ATP present in the cell into cyclic AMP. Now, what is the role of cyclic AMP? Cyclic AMP activates a kinase enzyme which is responsible for phosphorylating the inactive hormone sensitive lipase, okay, using ATP molecule. So once the hormone sensitive lipase is phosphorylated, it comes to its active form. So it is activated and then it hydrolyzes triglycerides to free fatty acids. So this is how these different hormones are activating the enzyme lipase. That is why we call that enzyme as hormone sensitive lipase. Now on the other hand, insulin. What is the role of insulin? What does insulin do? Insulin activates phosphodiesterase. Okay, so there is an enzyme called phosphodiesterase which can hydrolyze cyclic AMP to AMP. So that time this lipase enzyme will be inactivated. Okay, because phosphorylation of lipase will not take place, so it will be inactivated. Now caffeine inactivates phosphodiesterase. So caffeine inactivates phosphodiesterase, and here cyclic AMP level remains high. So cyclic AMP will not be converted to AMP, it remains high. So lipase will be activated. So caffeine can activate lipase. Now next is adipose tissue and diabetes mellitus. So what are the biochemical changes seen in the adipose tissue in case of diabetes mellitus? So in case of diabetes mellitus, we know glucose cannot be utilized by the cells. So as alternate source of energy, there will be enhanced lipolysis, and due to that there is high free fatty acid level in plasma. Now insulin receptors are decreased. So the insulin receptors present in the adipocytes, they are decreased. So there is insulin insensitivity in diabetes. So insulin receptors are decreased, so insulin cannot act due to the reduction in its receptors. So there is insulin insensitivity in diabetes, and also in type 2 diabetes insulin resistance is seen. So there will be hepatic gluconeogenesis in that will be occurring uninhibited. So there is hyperglycemia, and there is increased mobilization of fatty acids from adipose tissue, and there is high free fatty acid level in presence of hyperinsulinemia, and that leads to synthesis of triacylglycerols. Now, this overproduction of triglycerides causes increased release of VLDL from liver. Okay, so VLDL carries all these triglycerides into the blood, so resulting in hypertriglyceridemia. Then excess deposition of triglycerides in adipose tissue can lead to a condition called obesity, and this is also obesity can also be seen in type 2 diabetes patients due to excess deposition of triglycerides in adipose tissue. So actually why? Because there is a high level of insulin, okay, in type 2 diabetes due to insulin resistance. So this insulin normally inhibits lipolysis. So what happens? Triglycerides will not be broken down. So these triglycerides will be deposited in the adipose tissues. That leads to obesity. So adipose tissue and obesity. Now what is obesity? Obesity can be defined as increase in fat content of adipose tissue to unlimited amounts depending on the excess calories taken in. So there is increase in the fat content in the adipose tissue because excess calories are taken in. So that leads to obesity. So here plasma insulin level is high and insulin receptors are decreased, and there is peripheral resistance against insulin action. So there is decrease in the number of insulin receptors, and the cells will not act to this to insulin. So therefore insulin cannot inhibit therefore there is increase in fat content of adipose tissue. So that is regarding obesity. Now adipokines. What are adipokines? Adipokines are adipose tissue derived hormones. Okay, or they are also called as adipose tissue derived hormones. These are certain hormones derived from adipose tissue. Now, they are a group of factors involved in maintenance of energy homeostasis as well as resistance to insulin. Now, the important adipokines are leptin, adiponectin, resistin, tumor necrosis factor, then interleukin 6. Now, leptin, it is a small peptide produced by adipocytes, and leptin receptors, they are present in the brain, specific centers of the brain, and, and their feeding behavior can be regulated by leptin. And if leptin is defect, or if there is any defect in its receptor, that can lead to obesity, and it exerts an insulin sensitizing effect. So here in the picture you can see, so the leptin which are being produced by the adipocytes, and there are leptin receptors present in the hypothalamic region, and the action of leptin is that it can regulate the feeding behavior, that is food intake is decreased, then energy expenditure it is increased, and if there is defect in the leptin or its receptor, it leptin it decreases the body weight. Okay, leptin actually reduces the body weight, but if leptin is uh, deficient, or if its receptor is deficient, it leads to obesity. Next is adiponectin. Adiponectin, it increases the insulin sensitivity of muscle and liver, and it has an anti-atherogenic effect. Okay, so if normally it has an anti-atherogenic effect, it can prevent atherosclerosis, but if the levels of adiponectin are less, it can lead to atherosclerosis and metabolic syndrome. Actually, metabolic syndrome, it is a disorder, I mean, so characterized by hypertension, high blood glucose level, then high fat deposition in the body, and also high blood cholesterol levels. That together is called as metabolic syndrome. And adiponectin, it can protect liver injury by inhibiting certain pro-inflammatory mediators such as C-reactive protein, interleukin 6, and tumor necrosis factor. Now, if the secretion of TNF alpha, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and interleukin 6 are increased, it will decrease insulin action on muscle and liver. Now, finally, coming to white and brown adipose tissue. So, there are two types of adipose tissue, white and brown adipose tissue. We'll see what are they. White adipose tissue, actually, they are mainly concerned with energy storage, and the major component of white adipose tissue are triglycerides. It constitutes around 80 percentage, and around 50 percentage are of the triglycerides are rich in oleic acid. That is around 50 percentage of oleic acid are present. And these white adipose tissue, they are spherical cells and with very few mitochondria. Okay. Now next is brown adipose tissue. It is involved in thermogenesis. So thermogenesis, it is actually a process found in brown adipose tissue, wherein heat is liberated by uncoupling oxidation from phosphorylation. Okay, so when we know about oxidative phosphorylation, so when a substrate is oxidized, it can oxidatively phosphorylate, undergoes oxidative phosphorylation. Normally, it produces ATP. But when this oxidation is uncoupled from phosphorylation, the energy is released as heat, okay, instead of trapping it in the high energy bonds of ATP. So that is known as thermogenesis. Heat is liberated. Now here in brown adipose tissue, their cells are polygonal with more cytoplasm, and brown color is due to the presence of mitochondria. There are numerous mitochondria that gives the brown color. And this brown adipose tissue is important in newborn human beings and hibernating animals. So that's about white and brown adipose tissues. Now finally we have liver adipose tissue axis. Okay. Now liver, it produces fatty acids and triglycerides. We know triglycerides are getting synthesized in the liver. The fatty acids are getting synthesized in the liver, and these fatty acids, they are taken up by VLDL, which is a lipoprotein, and they are transported through the blood, and the fatty acids from VLDL are taken up by adipose tissue, okay, with the help of lipoprotein lipids. And these fatty acids are again, and these fatty acids are further converted to triacylglycerols, and they are stored there. And this triacylglycerols, they can be again hydrolyzed whenever there is a demand of this free fatty acids. These triacylglycerols are hydrolyzed by the hormone sensitive lipase into non-esterified fatty acids, okay, into non-esterified fatty acids. And this non-esterified fatty acids is released into blood, and there it binds with albumin to form albumin non-esterified fatty acid complex. And from this complex, this non-esterified fatty acid can be uptaken by the peripheral tissues, okay, for it can be utilized. And the excess non-esterified fatty acids can be transported back. It can be taken up by the liver, okay. So thus we can see there is a constant flux of fat molecules from liver to adipose tissue, and from adipose tissue back to liver. So that is known as liver adipose tissue axis. So that's all about adipose tissue metabolism. So we know in adipose tissues they are storage sites of uh, triglycerides or the fat molecules. Okay, so with that we finish today's class.